Welcome to the 359. I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Ben Fox-Rubin.
I'm Dara Singh.
The T-Mobile Sprint soap opera continues, and continues to really kind of boggle the mind at this point, because it seemed like last week's T-Mobile Sprint had a done deal with Dish, but reports have shown that, or have said that the last minute, the Dish co-founder, Charlie Ergen, has tried to change the terms of the deal.
No surprise
asking
there.
for more. No surprising, Charlie Ergen has been known to be a maverick, and that's probably underselling it. And so now there are breakdown talks. There was an additional report that Google, of all companies, Google and Alphabet, are stepping in to help broker a deal, maybe to help out Dish. Google says today, told us actually, that's flat out wrong, flat out denied being part of this deal. So it leaves us in this weird situation.
It's just like the NBA free agency of
I
the
know.
tech world.
I know. I was watching this and the free agency market. I don't know which one's crazier. What do you think? You think this still gets done?
Hold on. I want to ask you.
All right.
I wanted to ask you that question.
All right.
Because this is such like a Ross and Rachel, will they or won't they type of situation
It has been
years.
For years, yes.
And even before then, correct me if I'm wrong here, AT&T tried to buy T-Mobile well before then.
Yep.
So is like, are your expectations that this is actually going to get consummated this time, or are they going to walk away again?
I still think this will get done somehow. I think Charlie Ergen, with his last minute negotiating tactic, this is kind of standard Charlie Ergen. He's kind of a wild card when it comes to these types of deals. So it can get they most likely will get back on the table. I don't know what goes on with Google. I'm assuming Google's out. That's what they say. But it's an interesting point, and I think part of it is that the FCC, the government basically wants more than 3 players, right? They don't want Sprint T-Mobile to remove that 4th competitive player, which is where Dish comes in. Dara, you kind of crunched some numbers for the deal, right? Tell me, what does T-Mobile and Sprint look like from a combined perspective? Like, how big are the numbers?
So if we look at them individually right now, we see that T-Mobile stands at number 3 in terms of subscribers. Then Sprint is at number 4. In terms of market cap, we're looking at $64.77 billion just for T-Mobile alone, and then $28.55 billion for Sprint. Looking at kind of, the wireless customer counts, 81.3 million for T-Mobile and 54.5 million for Sprint, which is something interesting is that in 2015 alone, it was kind of reversed in terms of their ranking.
Oh, right. Yep.
Yeah. So Sprint was kind of the number 3 player and T-Mobile was the number 4.
Yeah, bringing it back to what Ben said, like that was in the aftermath of when AT&T tried to buy T-Mobile. That all fell apart, and T-Mobile was kind of left for dead. Then John Ledger came in with the Un-carrier and basically pushed its market share above Sprint's over time. All right, so next up, where the apps you load on your Android phone, security researcher International Computer Science Institute found more than 1,000 apps, actually more than 1,300 apps, still gather your precise location and phone identifier info, even if you deny them permission. It's yet another red flag sometimes for the Android market. There are some you have to be aware of what kind of apps you're loading.
Right, and so Google did say that they are going to address these issues in Android Q, which is expected to be released later this year. But yeah, like we've seen this over and over again over the years, right, where if developers do find kind of an easy access point to just be able to get permissions, they'll do it.
And it's curious that Google's waiting till Android Q, right? Because
I would have liked to see them address it faster.
That version of the OS doesn't come out until the fall, and it's unclear if every single device is going to upgrade to that OS.
It won't.
So just to note, Shutterfly and Baidu's Hong Kong Disneyland app are among the apps that actually take your location information, even if you say no in terms of permission. All right, lastly, Huawei is full steam ahead on its own operating system called Hongmeng OS. It's supposed to be an alternative to Google's Android, and Huawei may end up having to use this as its main OS if the U.S. ban preventing them from using Google's OS sticks. So I don't know. Going in on your own operating system. That's
I like competition, but the problem is that this is already a very mature market.
Yeah.
Android already has 80% of the market, whereas iOS has somewhere around 20%, and there really isn't a third alternative.
Right.
if anybody could come up with another alternative, maybe it would be Huawei because they are the number 2 mobile player.
Yeah.
But I'm still very skeptical that they're going to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, even the Huawei's founder basically said, like, our operating system he claims it runs 60% faster, which is nice, except if there are no apps on it, then, well, how useful is this? I mean, we've seen this story before with BlackBerry and with Windows Phone. They're all dead now, so...
They might not have a choice, though.
Yeah.
You know, if the Trump administration keeps jumping in and saying, hey, you're not allowed to use these technologies, then this might be the alternative that they're going to be forced to do.
All right, for more of these stories, check us out on CNET. I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Dara Singh.
Thanks for listening.
Rude, Roger. Rude.
That was not cool.
That was my bad. That
We
was
would
totally
like
my
to
bad.
apologize
Sorry, Dara.
to our news intern.
See what I mean? It's all about getting in that rhythm, and as soon as you break that rhythm, everything just goes to hell.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah,
It's true. We've done this way too many times.
So we're going to do it again.
Yet you still
No,
have to read the
this is live.
teleprompter.
This is 100% live.
Yeah.
We're not doing this again.
We're
Don't
live,
worry about
Dara.
it. Or just
Yes.
roll with it.
Roger has shamed himself before.
Yeah, I screwed up
before the
American
altar.
people.
Before the altar of YouTube.
Yeah. It's
So,
all good.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Some days it's me. Most days it's me.
No,
Some days it's Roger.
I screw up a lot. It's
Okay.
fine.
All right. That's
I get
nice
it.
of you.
Yeah.
All right, thanks everybody as always for joining us for the live recording of the audio podcast. You can subscribe to us down below using the links in the description. You can also follow along to all the stories that we're covering today using the links in the description. We try to keep things as thorough as possible, but 4 minutes is never enough to cover the headlines. So as always, we want to talk to you, figure out what you want to learn more about on these topics. Right out the gate, our buddy Yan is asking, can someone give me a refresher? Is it T-Mobile or Sprint that's owned by SoftBank?
That is SoftBank. They own a majority share in Sprint. Deutsche Telekom is the one that owns T-Mobile.
Which is a German company.
It is. Hence the Deutsche.
I'm just making
Yeah.
sure people
Thanks for the
know.
context, dude.
Hello.
Next question's coming in from our standby Timothy. Timothy Dew is always in the chat. We love having you, dude. You always have really good questions. Do you think any public opinion is going to affect this merger deal?
No, I don't think so. It's also not. I don't think it's a deal that's really elicited a huge amount of like consumer opinion. There are the unions who are obviously against it. There are plenty of states' attorney generals that are against it as well. But it's not like a net neutrality like topic where it's a hot button issue.
It's also not like the tech breakup. It doesn't emerge into
Yeah.
like the tech breakup scenario because these are telcos. Right. I mean, like you could argue that they're tech companies to a certain extent,
But they're not.
really.
They're not Google or Facebook. They're not
No.
dealing with that kind of tech breakup issue for sure.
I also think because T-Mobile said it plans on keeping prices stagnant for 3 years,
Yep.
I don't think it would be much of a threat to like consumers if we take their word.
I'm willing to bet that time frame gets extended, like not 3 years, but maybe 5 years. Like having a price lock in place is definitely a good way to sell this deal to consumers for sure.
So can we walk through also what Dish would end up getting in this deal,
Well-
if that were to happen?
As the reports sort of laid out right now, Dish is supposed to get, I believe, Boost, Sprint's prepaid business, a network sharing agreement, and support, like a customer service support for like building out its own network. I think part of the issue right now is Dish sits on a lot of radio spectrum, a lot of airways that they're supposed to put to use by next year. They haven't built out anything yet, and I think they just don't have the money or the appetite to pay for a network like this, and so I think that's what the sticking point is.
Okay. And so Dish, the argument is that you would just be buying they would be a carrier. You could be buying your cell service through Dish.
Exactly. Well, yes, and then the fact what Dish gets out of this from Sprint T-Mobile is it gets them into the wireless service like right off the bat, as opposed to building out your own network.
Gotcha.
Timothy also asked, do you think Verizon and AT&T will oppose this merger?
No.
That was easy.
Yeah. No.
They're much bigger players, right?
They're bigger players with T-Mobile Sprint together. I think as you mentioned, with their combined base, they're actually kind of all equal at that point. Verizon and AT&T have basically stayed out of this completely. In their minds, if the deal goes through, that's a lot of chaos for T-Mobile for like the next year, 2 years, as they kind of integrate these two different networks. And so for them, that means potentially a distracted T-Mobile and an opening for AT&T and Verizon.
CKT says Google Fi already has Sprint and T-Mobile tethering. I've used it for 3 years and love it and will never go back. Do you think Google Fi will become stronger now?
No, I mean, look, it's like Google's MVNO based off of T-Mobile and Sprint's network. I don't know if I don't know if it'll be stronger if the deal goes through or not, because right now there are two separate networks that the phone kind of rides on, which is kind of nice. Eventually it'll be like one integrated network, which could be better or not. We don't really know, so it's kind of unclear. I think that's where a lot of the Google rumors kind of kicked up, because since Google Fi is already involved with T-Mobile and Sprint, like it kind of made sense for them to kind of try to jump in with Dish.
Does Fi count as a carrier?
No, Google
Not
Fi
really.
it's considered like an MVNO or a reseller of wireless
Okay.
service. Yeah, like you could just buy it. You could buy it through Google, but they're using Sprint and T-Mobile's network.
So Sprint and T-Mobile end up making money off of those.
Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Switching gears over to Huawei, if Huawei can create their own OS, do you think Nokia's Symbian will make a comeback in the near future?
Oh, that's an
Whoa,
interesting
deep
one.
cuts.
Wow.
I'll
I
let
haven't
one of
heard
you-
that
I'll let one
name
of
in
you
a
two
long
take that
time.
one.
Probably not. When was the last time that was like dusted off and updated?
Yeah, no,
That's been
sorry.
a long time. So
Sorry.
I
no.
think that I'm kind of sad about Windows Phone. Every single time we talk about this stuff, like Windows Phone had like the cool tiles, and it had an opportunity to do well. I just don't think that it really found its market, and Microsoft was making its money doing a lot of other things. So ultimately, it just like they ended up sunsetting it.
I mean, it just was the classic problem. It couldn't get app support. Couldn't get the key app support. Same thing with BlackBerry's new OS. If there isn't the app support, people aren't around to like use it. It just doesn't have the usefulness of an iPhone or an Android device.
Right, and Samsung is the other good example here, where Samsung had been developing, help me out with the name.
Tizen.
Tizen.
Yeah.
Had been developing Tizen. I think it's used on its wearables, but it's never really put it into its its phones. It's obviously
There were Tizen phones. There were like a handful of Tizen phones.
Interesting.
Like, I think they were like an India market, and really no one bought them.
right.
So, yeah.
It's unfortunate that like basically everything, like especially internationally, so much is now turned into Android.
Right.
Where Huawei is being put in the position where that OS is being taken away from them. There really isn't anything else for them to take off the shelf. So they have to create this homegrown thing that won't have an app store. And to develop an app store could take years, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, the last year when the U.S. put a similar ban on ZTE for a little while, preventing them from using Android, they basically were going to just declare bankruptcy. Like they were just going to end
That's
the
so
business,
crazy.
right? Like that was the power of like
That's how
losing Android.
foundational that technology
Yeah.
is, which, you know, I guess from a regulatory standpoint, should that just be like available to everybody? Like it's given out for free anyway, you know?
Yep.
So
Do you think because Trump is saying that now U.S. companies can sell equipment to Huawei, do you think there's still that, like there's hope for the future?
You know, it's a great question because Trump has said that the Commerce Department like came back and said, no, what Trump said was wrong. We're actually like enforcing a full ban. But even if, and I know Larry Kudlow, the Treasury Secretary,
There you go.
I know. Wait, he is the Treasury Secretary, right?
I'm going to double check that.
I don't know why, but that
He's
just
a-
seemed ridiculous in my head. But I'm sure it's true. Even Larry Kudlow said that, to your point, that like Huawei could technically buy some select products that were non-competitive, so things like chips and memory. But I think the issue, and we haven't really gotten a firm answer, but that seems the case, is because Google's Android it is like intellectual property that like can't be reproduced easily. That probably doesn't fall under those exceptions. So even if Huawei could buy memory and like power components from U.S. companies, they still can't tap into Android, which is why they're investing so heavily in this Hongmeng OS.
Right. But the Chinese have basically, it seems to me that for trade negotiations to move forward, now we're talking very broadly here about U.S. and Chinese trade negotiations. The Chinese have made it pretty clear that they're like, look, you can't use Huawei as, like it's you need to help make sure that this company doesn't go bankrupt. It's a huge
Right.
company. It's the second biggest phone maker in the world. This company needs to have like this intellectual property and all these other aspects to be able to function.
We'll see how it all kind of shakes out because we like going back to the ZTE example. We all thought it was dead, and then like just one weekend after Trump meets with China, he's like, "I'm saving their jobs. I need to save jobs in China. I need to save, and we're gonna
Right.
save ZTE." And then basically, did he force the Commerce Department to go and create a settlement and like get it all worked out? And so maybe to your point about this broader discussion, like if China and the U.S. kind of work out their trade disagreements, then magically the ban lifts.
Right. Yeah. And as I was saying, China has definitely pushed Huawei forward in those trade negotiations. Like they're not ignoring the situation for them. So
Huawei's definitely like one of those companies that's sort of like a national pride thing. Like the locals take pride in the fact that like this local Chinese company is now like a world power in the mobile world. So it definitely means a lot to them from almost a patriotic perspective that Huawei continues to exist and thrive.
Yan says Google has allegedly warned against a Huawei operating system. First of all, can you guys substantiate that? Because I don't have any of those references at my fingertips. Secondly, do you think there's any validation or truth to those?
I'm sorry, what do you mean by warned against?
That's all he said. I'm assuming that there was allegedly some kind of concerns over their development and security, and how the operating system would cooperate in the larger ecosystem, but didn't really give any specifics.
as we've seen today, Android has its own security problems.
Right,
So, it's I guess
Don't
you
we
tread
all?
at your own risk, but you have to remember Huawei is a massive international company. So, they're like security issues do happen at any major company, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's not a fly-by-night operation either.
Especially because so many other countries besides the United States are taking like a gentle stance, I would say. Well, not gentle, but a less wary stance.
To Huawei?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Pivoting back over to the merger, Timothy says, since DirecTV is with AT&T, and if this merger goes through, do you see Dish combining their forces with the merger to compete with the AT&T and DirecTV bundle?
I have heard that theory that AT&T spins off the DirecTV part of their business and merges that with Dish to make them a more viable player. I mean, I don't know if it actually would happen. I mean, it makes financial sense because I think DirecTV right now is a drag on AT&T's results, so like it would make sense for them to get rid of it. But who knows? We're like way on the limb in terms of the realm of speculation with like all these other mergers. So right now, just trying to get through T-Mobile Sprint.
Right.
We don't even know if is that going to happen this week?
We don't know. What we thought maybe it would. I think last week going into this week, we thought the deal would be announced today, if not earlier. But then the last minute complications with Charlie Ergen and Dish means that this is probably going to drag on for who knows how long.
Yeah.
Where's your buddy John in all this? There,
Staying
Roger?
quiet, right? He's on his best behavior. He told me that last time I saw him.
Very out of character for him.
Well, he just doesn't want to screw this up. He knows what's at stake. He's a smart guy. His shtick about just sort of going off the, just going off the leash and just saying whatever he wants to say, that is partly an act. Like, he is very disciplined. The kind of like free-flowing personality like really masks the fact that T-Mobile is a pretty well-run machine.
Right. That doesn't, you don't go from like kind of left for dead fourth place to third place without, actually knowing what you're doing.
Right.
So,
Without just throwing out F-bombs all day.
Right. Yeah. So it does make sense that he's just probably like sharing his like various recipes online and trying to keep very chill.
Slow cooker Sundays.
Right.
It's very tame slow cooker Sundays, I'm sure. But yeah, I kind of miss the days when like telecom executives are throwing out F-bombs. Well, really just him.
Yeah.
There's no one else, but
he's kind of settled down a bit on that because
settled
like
down a lot.
it really helped the brand initially make waves, and now they've propelled themselves to being a much more significant player. They don't have to do that nearly as much anymore.
And if you've noticed, they haven't had like an uncarrier event in a while. So there really hasn't been a stage in which Ledger could get on and.
No, what was the last Uncarrier event? Like Free Pizza Tuesdays? I think they were.
Something like that?
Wasn't that like the Pink Sock flash mob?
I kind of forgot actually.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yan has jumped back in and said there was a letter that Google had sent to the Trump administration that mentions Huawei operating system in it. Now, I haven't seen this. Have you guys seen this?
I have not seen this.
Okay.
To be honest, I can kind of look into this, but I haven't seen it.
Sounds like we got homework for the next episode.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much that would impact U.S. consumers. You're talking about, like, Huawei phone buyers that would be using this new OS that's not even out yet.
Which isn't going to be out for a while if it does come out.
Right. So what's Google's fight in this whole race? I have no idea. If this is Huawei selling to Chinese consumers on their Chinese OS or like their own homemade OS, then why does Google care? I'm not really sure. So
they
we'll
might
have
have
to
been,
look into it.
This is me just speculating, but maybe it's just Google warning the Trump administration like this ban might actually have a detrimental effect on the broader mobile ecosystem. Because if you're taking Huawei out of the equation, you're taking out a major player that does contribute to the sort of the overall Android environment.
Yeah. We'll look into it. Definitely. Thanks for raising that point.
In their letter to the White House, Google said that Huawei's modified version of Android will be more vulnerable to hacking. That's all we
Okay,
got.
so all right, that makes sense then. If they're basically taking a forked version of Android, similar to what Amazon does with Fire, right? It doesn't have all the Google security updates, and that's the thing. That's kind of beyond like Gmail and Calendar. Like some of the secret sauce for Android comes directly from Google, and that's the stuff that would be banned from this Commerce Department.
Yeah.
Right.
Restriction.
Yeah, and the Android App Store is a good example of something that's been around for years and is such a lesser product than what you would actually get from Android's own App Store. So, and for Huawei to start right out the gate, it could take a really long time to develop enough apps to like actually make it a viable product.
By the way, the Larry Kudlow is the White House economic advisor.
Yes.
Not
I
the
knew it wasn't
Treasury Secretary.
Treasury. I wasn't
Man.
going to correct you, but I knew it wasn't Treasury.
You should have corrected me. 'Cause it's like, that
but I didn't know
sound
the
right.
answer.
It didn't
wasn't
sound
sure.
right when I said it. So
Yeah.
okay.
I think there's something to be said for the differentiation in premise of the operating systems. Like we mentioned, Amazon Fire modified Android, and in that, it's a very niche premise. Now, granted, it doesn't have to be, but I think it was in fact designed to just be very singular, if not just only a few purposes. You're meant to read books, watch TV, that kind of, maybe send some emails. So security doesn't come into play, whereas a Huawei phone is meant to be all-purpose, all-encompassing. It's meant to be an entire mobile operating system, where Fire by design was restrictive. Where the concerns that come in on that, they're going to vary from user case to user case, but it's something definitely to be aware of, and I'm glad you brought that up, Jan.
Yeah, for sure. And it's keep in mind, it's the OS that Huawei's building isn't just for phones. They intend this to be laptops, cars, smart home devices, speakers, like everything. So if there's a security vulnerability in that OS, that could leave potentially a lot of different devices vulnerable.
In regards to the OS, Timothy brings up a good philosophical point. Does the app make the operating system, or does the adoption rate make the operating system? Is this a feasible thought?
This is chicken and the egg question.
Yeah.
Bingo.
And, like that's like we could talk about that forever. It's ideally they both kind of happen in tandem, and you get a positive upward spiral. But
Right.
it's really hard to say. And as I mentioned with the Amazon store, like that one's been around for years, and it does well enough for what it's used for. But I don't think that it has nearly as much excitement or involvement as the Android or the Apple app stores.
I mean, I will say the way that Android and iOS got established, it was platform first, right? And then the apps came, because that's just sort of the way. But they got established at a different time when, these were wholly different mobile operating systems. They were a leap above everything else that came before it. Now that we have these entrenched players, like I feel like in order for a new OS to really break in, it has to like do something really different, right? It has to be just like either a different
VR and AR, or
maybe
like
or
a lot of
something
that other
crazy.
stuff.
Like it has to.
The problem
need
is
more.
like Google and Apple are already working on that stuff.
Right.
Like they know some of the newer technologies that are coming out of the gate, and they're preparing for that type of situation.
But it could be one of those things where the OS powers a whole new device, like a wearable or VR, AR, or something that like drives adoption because there's a reason for it, because consumers want it. As opposed to right now, it's like, oh, we're coming out with a new operating system. Like, why do I want this? I have iOS, I have Android. I'm good, right? Like, so unless it does something dramatically different, it's hard for me to say that this third one would be viable.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got one last chirp about the merger before we call it a day. Tim says, is it me or does the average consumer care only about the price after everything is all said and done? Does the merger really affect the consumer base at large, and it doesn't really matter who merges with who as long as your overall bill gets cheaper? What's your guys' takeaway on this? I mean, this is, of course, of interest to us in the reporting and the industry aspect, but do you think the average consumer is going to give a flying crap?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be immediate because as we see with any merger, like after this takes place, they still operate as two different independent entities. And maybe we'll see after 3 to 5 years what, like you said, if the prices will go down.
That's the thing. I don't think prices will ever go down at this point. Like, the trajectory is always up at this point. So regardless of whether or not there was going to be a merger, I just think that prices going down was not really in the cards, especially when you've got 5G and the temptation for these carriers to start charging fees for the upgrade to 5G. Like, the service is just going to get more expensive. Like, our data usage is going to explode as well as we figure out new ways to suck up more data. And so, I don't know, I'm skeptical that prices will go down. I don't know.
You got to remember, okay, so the premise of the question was, do consumers only care about price? I would argue from a carrier perspective, they also care about coverage. So if T-Mobile and Sprint are really pushing this whole point that you're going to get much better coverage in a lot more places, this is a huge selling point that Verizon always uses, where they're like, we have the best coverage ever, then that's at least another point that they can make to say, hey, this merger actually impacts you as the customer. So, I just wanted to throw that out as another point.
That's your point.
But again, I think the price, like you said, it might take some time if it does happen, because as of right now, we see that with T-Mobile, 5G, for instance, it's only in 6 cities. And then for Sprint, right now, it's only in 4 cities, with 5 planning on being the remainder portion of the year.
Right.
So progress it's taking its time.
It's that was the main selling point that T-Mobile and Sprint made when they first the first announced this deal. Was like, we're going to supercharge our 5G deployment. 5G is going to be everywhere thanks to these two. And the reality is
11 cities.
Yeah, well, the reality is, even if this deal had been sealed, completed already, it would have taken years to integrate the network, to integrate some of that spectrum, and actually have a combined 5G network. So, yeah, I think that's partly why the argument kind of faltered after a while. That people started to realize, okay, 5G is great, but what about 4G service? There are still places around the country that don't have 4G yet. So
I was in Brooklyn the other day just walking, and there's this big T-Mobile sign that says, we want to bring connectivity everywhere.
Yeah.
And then I just met someone who's like, oh, T-Mobile doesn't work in any floor of my apartment building.
Yeah.
So
right next to the sign.
it was this irony. Yeah.
All right, that's a good place as any to go ahead and conclude today's broadcast. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, and thanks for sending in such great questions and comments. The commentary only gets better and better as we keep doing this show and keep kind of trying to polish in some new elements and aspects of it. If you got a chance, go ahead, like and subscribe. Share this around on the different social networks. Tag us on Twitter. We're the Daily Charge. If you want to put it up on Reddit or anything like that, we'd love to get the exposure. You, our core fans, are the best part, but we'd love to see the family grow and get some more varied inputs and perspectives as we continue to trudge along on our 583rd episode coming up tomorrow, which we'll see you right here on the Daily Charge on YouTube and on Periscope if you are so inclined. But until then, thanks everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. And Roger.
Yep, 359 is available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Google Podcasts, Feedburner, the Amazon Alexa, and of course, CNET.com. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.